Welcome back, everybody. This is episode 4 of And That's Canon. This is our second attempt at recording this episode because for some reason the audio hates us tonight. Yes. I am Tommy with Richmond Comix.
And I am Travis from Checkpoint Ahead.
And we're going to jump right into our pick of the week for the first time, I swear.
Yeah.
All right. So, for me this week, Ms. Marvel. The book is chock full of teen angst, crazy-looking monsters, and adorableness. It is exactly the type of thing that I love. So, G. Willow Wilson has been killing it on Ms. Marvel. She did the last run, which ended with Secret Wars, of course. So, we come back, and Kamala is in full Avengers mode. She jumps out. There is some kind of crazy giant rodent ninja thing that the Avengers have to take out.
It even has weapons. Oh my god!
It does. Yeah, he's got weapons and a belt.
He honestly looks like a Ninja Turtle, but as a rat.
Yeah, I think that probably, I don't know. That might be the visual gag. I'm not sure. But there's this great panel where all the Avengers are like hitting this giant rat, and Kamala's just in the back, kind of like, "Yeah, I'm an Avenger!" It is just adorable. So the last time we left her, she and her best friend Bruno had just had this amazing heart-to-heart on the roof of a building while watching the universe end. And they professed their love for one another, and Kamala's like, "My life is too difficult. I have all of these responsibilities." And he's like, "I understand. You are Ms. Marvel. You have bigger things to do." So then we cut to 8 months later. Kamala has been really avenging it up. She really hasn't been around her friends a whole lot. So when she walks down the hallway in school and sees Bruno kissing on some other girl, she's kind of like, "Oh my god, what is happening?" So there's some really fun, tense moments between her and Bruno where she says snarky things, and he's like, I don't understand what's going on," because he's a teenage boy, and teenage girls, well, girls are a mystery to us. we are all very dumb. So there's some great stuff, and one of the things I love about it, Bruno is kind of like the typical skinny skater kid.
Yeah.
He's conventionally attractive, and his girlfriend has crazy teal streaks in her hair and is a bit overweight.
She's curvy.
She's very curvy.
Super curvy.
And I think that, once again, this book just doesn't care about conventional anything.
Yeah, it's just trying to represent life as it actually is, rather than how we want it to be, or how some people want it to be, rather.
It continues to amaze me how much I love this book. So, some giant, like, crazy apartment complex with fancy sushi bar just popped up overnight and has a big billboard out front with Kamala on it, well, Ms. Marvel on it, and everybody's like, "Ms. Marvel sell out?" And Kamala's like, "I don't even know what's going on right now." So it's super fun mystery. They've got security guards with high-tech weapons. They've got security drones that look like giant bees. And it's a lot of fun. I highly recommend this book to anyone that enjoys fun or angst.
Yeah, the stuff that you see in this book, like, you can really only see it here. Like this giant frog or amphibian we're looking at. That stuff you can only see in Ms. Marvel.
When Bruno and Kamala finally have "Why didn't you tell me you had a girlfriend?" And he's like, "But you've seen us together." And apparently what she was doing while Bruno was like, "Oh, hey, there's Kamala," was fighting giant frogs and things like that. So she really did not notice Bruno at all. But there's a cute thing that they do in this book where when he's telling this flashback, they're standing in an alleyway, and the graffiti on the wall behind them turns into Bruno and Mike's meet cute. And it's this adorable... it's just so cute. It's just so cute. So anyway, I highly recommend Ms. Marvel. It is delightful.
Awesome. So, guys, this is the first time I've talked about this book tonight.
Absolutely. I didn't know anything about this.
Yeah. So, my pick of the week is Vader Down. This is the first issue of the mega crossover between the Star Wars books and the Darth Vader book.
And the band 311.
Exactly.
Because Vader gets down.
Oh, I like it. In this book, though, it's written by Jason Aaron, much like the main Star Wars series. Drawn by Mike Deodato. This is his first turn in the Star Wars universe, and he just kills it. He draws, like, I've never said this before, again, spaceship porn. It's just filled with so much spaceship porn, and it looks beautiful. Big story here is basically Vader going to this planet to find Luke. He comes out of hyperspace only to be greeted by a bunch of X-Wing pilots. And he, being Vader, takes them down by himself. No issue.
I believe the technical term is wrecking fools.
Exactly. He is wrecking fools left and right. Yeah, so he takes down all the X-Wing pilots, save for one, this being Luke. And Luke decides to take it upon himself to take down Vader. So he basically just barrels his X-Wing at Vader's TIE Fighter, and they both crash, and they crash to this planet. Luckily, both survive, which I know that's a spoiler, because none of you probably have ever seen any of the Star Wars movies. Basically, yeah, so they both crash on this planet, and Luke, his whole point of being on this planet is to check out the Jedi Temple that was there. But now he's got no time for that, because he's got to go handle Vader. Vader crash lands only to be greeted by just bunches and bunches of rebel soldiers. And, they tell him to put down his weapons. He decides to just force lift, like, chunks of Earth and throw it at their Y-Wings. Pretty awesome seeing Vader be this badass. You get to see his force use, his TIE Fighter combat. It's just all epic stuff. And the last line he's got is just fantastic. They tell him, lay down your weapons, you're surrounded. And all he says is, all I'm surrounded is by fear and dead men. And that's the last line we see. And it's just, I cannot wait to see where this crossover goes. And like I said, Deodato, he is killing it with Star Wars.
So I was terribly disappointed.
Yeah.
Because
express your disappointment.
Because all this time, I've been under the impression that we were going to get 6 issues of Vader examining himself and his depression after his favorite Death Star got blown up.
Yeah, I think that's what everybody was expecting, and it's a good read, but that read would have been better.
I mean, giant space battles with lasers
that's
and
kind of
ships.
fun.
I mean, it's whatever. But I think, like, a 6-issue existentialist journey through the mind and psyche of Darth Vader.
Yeah, just Vader on a couch.
I feel like that's what we need.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hit and a miss, Jason Aaron.
Well, we're going to continue on our Jason Aaron Love Fest, and it won't end here.
Oh, no.
As I talk about The Mighty Thor #1. Now, first, I'm going to try not to get lost in this cover again.
It's very hard not to.
It keeps happening. So, we've got a tri-gatefold cover for this issue of Mighty Thor, and on the inside of the gatefold is a black and white version of the cover with weird, like, pink accents. But the work is absolutely gorgeous. It is some of the prettiest stuff I've ever seen.
Every character who could be associated with Thor on it.
Yeah, it's amazing. You know what? I've looked at this cover for about 40 minutes. I just noticed Beta Ray Bill.
Oh, snap. He's there.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
And he looks great.
So, one of the things, talking about subverting the typical comic book stuff, there are dozens of characters on this cover. Many, many women, but the only one who is standing in such a way to accentuate his butt is the original Thor.
He's rocking those glutes.
He's like, I got this ripped up cape and no shirt, but check out these buns.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's, all right, enough of that. Let's get sad. So, the first few pages are all about Jane Foster's battle with cancer. So, for a while now, Jane has been undergoing chemotherapy, which I've had friends and family members go through this, and it's a pretty horrific process. They basically inject you with poison to kill what's going on inside your body that's already killing you, but a lot of times the chemo makes you sicker than the cancer, and it breaks you down in a way that it's unpleasant, to say the very least. And so for the first few pages, we get Jane Foster's description of what undergoing chemotherapy is like. And it's a pretty apt description, and it's very sad, but she's so brave and she's so strong that it's kind of uplifting at the same time. And then just as you're mired in this stuff, where you're like, this heavy emotion, there's a Volstagg sleeping with his hand in a potato chip bag.
Just gut hanging out.
Yeah.
Looking great.
Volstagg being Volstagg.
Oh, yeah.
So we find out that Roxxon, who has been a major bad guy in the Thor books for a long time. Roxxon's been around since the 70s, I think. They were the Marvel Comics version of Exxon. The big evil corporation. But in Marvel, they're even more evil than they are in the real world. They've even got their own news channel, Rox News, which
that won't offend anyone.
I think they're trying to reference something from the real world.
Maybe,
but
probably not.
I don't get it.
It's just a new thing.
I don't get it. So then we see they switch to the weather from the news, and they talk to their weather girl, who is living in their weather satellite. And not a satellite where they check the weather, but a satellite where if your country pays Roxxon, they'll make it whatever weather you want. Which I'm sure will have no harmful effects.
Roxxon, always out for Mother Earth.
Yeah. And Germany just ordered up a hailstorm for the Netherlands. Must have been quite a soccer game last night. Using weather to...
Oh, boy.
It's a good time. So then we get what the book really is going to be about. A dead body hits this weather satellite, and it's one of the light elves from Alfheim. Now, the light elves, for those of you who don't know the Thor mythology, they're the good elves. They're the elves that like things that are pretty. They don't fight. They're not warriors. They create music and poetry, and their job is to be pretty. And suddenly the satellite is bombarded with a meteor shower of dead elves. And this double-page spread is at the same time grotesque and beautiful.
Absolutely.
It is amazing. This artist is just knocking me out, because up until the last run of Thor, I had never even heard of this artist. His name is Russell Dotterman. I'm not at all...
I'm familiar with him from... He did a few issues of the Cyclops series that they did a bit ago, which it was always amazing then, too. Like, seeing him draw all that space stuff was great, so this is just more of that, it looks like.
It's so good. So, what we learn here is... so, all this horrible stuff is going on, and Jane's going through chemotherapy, and we learn that every time she transforms into Thor, the chemotherapy that is there to help rid her of the cancer is completely destroyed. So, changing back into Thor is undoing all of the horribly hard work that she has been doing to try and stay alive. But she does it. She sees people in trouble, and her first thought is, well, maybe next time. And then she calls down the hammer.
Oh, man.
And, takes the IV out of her hand, goes outside, grabs the hammer, flies to space, and saves people. And then there's a really fun interaction with the Avengers, where Iron Man's like, hey, you know what caused all this? And she's like, yup. And then she leaves. And he's
great.
like, okay, then, nice chat. And Doctor Strange then makes fun of Iron Man. So, good times.
Absolutely.
Good times. But, you go to space and there's a bunch of dead elves. And, what do? So, there's a bit with her and Volstagg where they discuss, the small portions of hospital food and that sort. Well, Volstagg discusses that. And then they head to Asgardia. And while they're leaving, the thing that struck me as odd is that she calls Volstagg Senator. I was very confused.
Yes.
Until we get to Asgardia and we find out that there is a Congress of Worlds. There is a congressperson or two from each of the 9 realms. And Volstagg is the senator from Asgardia, and Jane Foster is the senator from Midgard. So the elves of Alfheim are having a fit because, Malekith and his folks are killing people and bad things, and the rest of the Senate's like, well, where's your proof? You got any proof? And then Jane and Volstagg roll in, and Jane's like, yeah, I saw it. And they're like, did you really see it? With your own eyes? And she doesn't want them to know that she's Thor. So she's like, no, but Thor told me. And then there's like a big uproar. Like, how dare you bring up Thor's name? Because it turns out Odin's gone crazy. And he's locked himself in his castle, and the destroyer's out front so nobody can get in. And his crazy brother Kull, who was the big evil during Fear itself, is basically like his second in command.
God, and he was a bad dude during Fear itself.
He's a very bad dude. Yeah.
Man.
So we got the elves are about to go to war. Both the light elves of Alfheim and the dark elves of
Svartalheim.
And it turns out that Freya is in jail because Odin charged her with treason and put her in jail.
Wow. Odin is a jerk.
He is. There's posters everywhere in Asgardian with Jane Foster's female Thor on it. And it says false Thor and thief because they're saying that she stole Thor's hammer. Oh. Which, if you understand the enchantment of Thor's hammer, is virtually impossible.
Absolutely. But now, I'm not. I haven't been following the Thor series. Does Odinson know who the current Thor is?
I don't believe he does.
Okay.
And one of the big mysteries in this is where is he?
Yeah. Okay.
Like he's not in the book at all. Okay. And Freya's like, "Have you heard anything?" And Jane's like, "Nope, haven't heard a thing." Wow. So he is missing. And there's a bit where she goes to the Bifrost, and Heimdall's like, "No, I can't help you. I still take orders from Odin." And she's like, "He's crazy." And Heimdall's like, "Eh." So, and then Cole shows up, and there's about to be a throwdown, and then we switch scenes to crazy Minotaur guy from Roxxon.
Yeah, the human guy. He can transform, right?
Human that transforms to a Minotaur, hanging out with Malekith, as they have in the past. There was a bit in the last iteration of Thor where Malekith cut off Thor's arm and wore it like a boa for a while.
I remember that.
Super gross.
Yeah.
But they've got basically a little cabal of evil dudes who are getting together to cause mischief and mayhem. And then they're like, should we let this other guy in? And everybody's like, I don't know. He usually lies. And then you flip the page. Spoilers. There's Loki.
Yes. And this is the Loki straight out of, like, Agent of Asgard, like, hero Loki, or good guy Loki. I don't know if he was good, but I guess sort of good Loki?
He was sort of good. He was trying to be good.
Yeah.
And then he says it feels good to be bad again.
Oh, man.
Yeah. I cannot wait to see what comes next.
That can only go well.
All right, I'm going to put this away before I get mesmerized by the cover.
Yeah. Russell Donovan, you are killing us.
Let's talk more about Jason Aaron.
Yeah, because I'm always game for that. And as always, I'm very up for talking about Star Wars. So next book I'm going to talk about is Star Wars number 12. This is picking up from the last issue where Chewbacca was being held by Dengar the Bounty Hunter, and Han Solo had just come by to save him. Han Solo basically tells Dengar, if you hurt my friend, you're gonna get hurt yourself. Dengar is not going to give up without a fight, so he threatens Han with a thermal detonator, and back to Chewie. He's not even paying attention to Chewie. He just gets up.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. I'm pretty sure that the proper pronunciation is thermal detonator.
It's true.
That's the way I heard it.
Oh man, I love Star Wars jokes. That was great. So basically, Chewie gets tired of hearing Dengar talk about whatever and just throws him off of a building.
As you do.
Yes, and that thermal detonator definitely goes off. Obviously, we know Dengar is going to come back to threaten our heroes in Empire Strikes Back, or I guess try to threaten them.
He's not really very threatening.
Yeah, he just shows up for maybe like one scene, and then Boba Fett takes over. So basically, they're all on this planet, Nar Shaddaa, to take care or to rescue Luke. Luke is in this arena that belongs to Gracchus the Hutt, who is one of the most vile Hutts that I've come across.
Also, the most buff Hutt.
That's true. Yeah, he wrecks some guys.
Yeah.
He's very strong, and he's got these crazy like mechanical spider legs. So he's not necessarily like wobbling around like.
He's like Mojo the Hutt.
Exactly. Yeah. Anybody who's familiar with Marvel is going to get that reference. So in this, though, we find out that Gracchus's game master, who's been training Luke and training all of his combatants, isn't necessarily what he claims to be. Turns out he's actually an Imperial spy, and he's working directly for Vader. He's part of the 501st, Vader's Fist. And in this, basically, he brings in all these stormtroopers to take down Gracchus, and Gracchus mentions how he's not like the other Hutts, like we mentioned before. He's super strong, and he can take care of himself. Not only that, the slightest mention, to his crowd, and they'll start picking these guys apart, limb from limb. Luke is still having trouble with this mechanical Rancor cyborg thing that's just horrifying looking. Luke finally gets his lightsaber back, and from that point, he's able to do some sweet moves on these stormtroopers. Just then, Han and Leia and Chewie and Han's wife, Sana, pop in, and they're going into to this arena to save Luke. And R2-D2 does this awesome maneuver that he used in Return of the Jedi to shoot the lightsabers out of his hatch, I guess. And guys, Chewie, Han, Leia, they all have lightsabers. And Tommy did mention that it does put the squash in one of his theories, but it does look cool.
It is very cool, especially Chewbacca's got 2 lightsabers.
Yeah, Chewbacca has 2.
Because, one's not enough when you're a Wookiee.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But I had always theorized that to be able to utilize a lightsaber, you'd have to be able to use the Force.
Yes, which would make sense.
With normal swords, you get nicked.
Definitely.
Even if it's just slapped with the flat of the blade, you at some point are going to hit your shoulder or hit your leg.
Which is not a problem necessarily with a real sword.
Right. You barely touch yourself with a real sword and no negative repercussions. You touch yourself with a laser that cuts through anything, there could potentially be some limbless repercussions.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, basically, there's a sweet lightsaber fight with all these guys. Han actually does mention how he's desperately trying not to cut off his own face with that lightsaber. So he's not great at using it. Basically, Luke confronts the game master, who tells him, I'm a stormtrooper, and Luke's like, I thought you were training me to fight, and he says, I was training you to die, which is a pretty cool line. Basically, in this, one of the big reveals in this is that Sana Solo, as we come to know her, is actually not Han Solo's wife.
What?
Yeah, who could have seen that coming? All you guys who are angry, I'm sure, are thrilled now. But yeah, her real name is Sana Starros, and the wedding was a scam. Much like Han Solo is used to doing, and basically he just took her cut and ran. So that's why she's after him.
It's a very Han Solo thing to do.
Absolutely. Her and Leia actually get a cool little moment here where they're maybe burying the hatchet a bit. So I really hope Sana comes back because I like her a lot. It seems like they kind of go their separate ways here. At the very end, we've got Crocus in cuffs. The stormtroopers have taken him into custody, and the game master is reporting back to his boss, telling him all he knows about Skywalker, or about this boy, and he's just telling everything to Vader. And Vader, the last thing he says is, "Tell me everything." And he's got this clenched fist, and he just looks so pissed, and he just looks so Vader. It's brilliant.
Yeah, and just in case you're reading all these, this is the lead-in to Vader Down.
Yes, this is before Vader Down.
Yeah, so you definitely want to pick up Star Wars 12 before you read Vader Down, because Angry Vader at the end of Star Wars 12 is where we start.
Exactly.
Vader Down.
Exactly.
All right, I'm going to jump over to a fun little book from Image called Huck. Mark Miller, I read an interview with him earlier today where he said that this book came out of the trauma that he suffered watching Man of Steel.
Right.
Which I get. Superman They wrecked all of Metropolis.
Yeah.
And a lot of people argued, that's not Superman. He wasn't saving anybody. And my argument to that is he's untrained and was getting his butt kicked for 30 minutes straight.
Which is a fair point. Definitely a fair point.
I think that, cut the guy some slack.
Yeah.
Nobody ever trained him.
Yeah.
But anyway, Mark Miller wrote this incredibly sweet story with amazing art from Raphael Albuquerque. I think some of the best art he's ever put on paper.
Absolutely.
And it's about this guy named Huck who lives in this little small town, and he lives by a philosophy: do something nice for someone every day. And it's a little easier for him because he doesn't get tired. It looks like he can fly a little. He's super fast. He can jump real high.
Really strong.
Yeah, he's very much like a Superman type character, but he's this quiet, simple man who works in a gas station in this very small town, and everyone knows that he has superpowers, and the entire town keeps his secret because they all know what would happen if the secret got out that this really sweet guy.
And he's just genuinely a nice guy. Like he just he's not doing these good deeds because he thinks he has to. He just wants to.
And he's an orphan. He was dropped off at the steps of the orphanage, and the note in the basket, please love him. And there's a scene where he's holding that note and looking at it and just kind of smiling, like. Yeah,
his facial expressions throughout it are great. Just his reactions to the good deeds he's doing is just fantastic.
It's a really sweet book. There's some pretty rough violence in here. There's ripped from the headlines.
Definitely.
He's watching the news, and Boko Haram have kidnapped 200 schoolgirls. So he hops on a plane, and when the media comes to ask the schoolgirls how they were rescued, they're like, I don't know. We've got all this candy though.
Yeah.
So it's a really sweet story that is, of course, ruined by opportunistic jerks.
Yeah.
Because most of the issue is narrated by an elderly woman who's telling the new girl in town all about Huck. And it turns out the new girl in town does not share the rest of the town's desire to keep Huck a secret.
Unfortunately not.
So I am incredibly interested to see where this goes next.
Yeah, I definitely enjoyed the first issue, and I think we were talking before. Mark Miller is kind of hit or miss. It really depends.
Yeah.
I think this is going to be a good one. Like much like Starlight, like I said, it kind of seems like it's taking a well-known character or a well-known idea and just doing something different with it. Similar how Starlight was with Flash Gordon, and this seems to be doing with Superman.
I really hope it keeps this tone. I know Mark Miller has we were talking earlier. Mark Miller has a tendency to be a little hyper-violent.
Yeah. Which works in some cases.
Sure. But this book, I'm hoping that it keeps this.
Yeah, sweetness. It's just a great word for it because it's just so sweet. It's really cute, and I really hope it maintains that.
I hope so too.
All right, so my book, we're going to jump back into Marvel. This is Extraordinary X-Men #2. This is written by Jeff Lemire and drawn by Humberto Ramos. We pick up with Ilana and Colossus. They have gone to Amsterdam to find Nightcrawler. And they find some of Nightcrawler, his tail.
Sure, because sometimes you lose your tail.
Yeah, and it's covered in blood, so I hope it went well for him. Probably not. We jump over to Old Man Logan, who was introduced at the end of last issue, and he's come face to face with this Sentinel. He's not okay with being near this Sentinel. Storm and Bobby are out there with him, and they mention to him how it's not really a Sentinel, it's kind of just a shell for this AI that's basically in there that Forge had made called Cerebra. And basically a sentient Cerebro, they just go around locating mutants, and they're kind of questioning him, like, how are you alive? Where did you come from? And he doesn't really say that necessarily that he's not the Logan they know, but he mentions that he is from the future. Now, we still don't really know the circumstances of how he got here, really. Secret Wars is still happening. We kind of got an idea, at the end of Old Man Logan, he did show up in the new Marvel Universe. But after that, we kind of pick up with Jean, who is still trying to live her normal life. She's with a boyfriend, presumably. They kiss, so I'm going to say boyfriend. And like I said, she's just trying to have a normal life. They leave this little bar or whatever it may be and come across a kind of a mugging that's happening where these people are beating on this guy who's clearly not human or not the conventional human. And they're giving him crap for being a mutant, and Jean does not let that slide. Her boyfriend even's like, hey, it's just a mutant. You can leave him alone or whatever. She did not like that at all. The next shot is her turned around, eyes glowing, and he's just like screaming. She just wrecks these dudes, takes care of all of them, and helps the mutant up and says, I'm a mutant too or whatever. And he says he's not a mutant, he's an Inhuman, which is going to definitely play into the conflict that seems to be growing between the mutants and the Inhumans. Ilana and Colossus, they are in Manhattan, end up in the sewers fighting these crazy, like, spirit-looking dragons and this dude with horns who looks a lot like Odin. Basically, they're fighting these guys. They're getting their butts handed to them. Meanwhile, Storm is back at the X-Haven. Still have no idea where X-Haven is, but they mention how the defenses are getting damaged, and Ilana had put those defenses in place. Sinister, you find out, is the guy who's wrecking Ilana and Colossus, and he's just beating the crap out of him. Finally, Ilana gets knocked out, and we cut back to X-Haven, where all the defenses are down. And they go to this amazing splash page where they reveal that X-Haven is in Limbo. Which, anybody who knows anything about Ilana, Limbo is basically hell.
Yeah, like, in the Marvel Universe, literally hell.
Yeah, like Dormammu's hanging out in there, all that stuff. Literally, they have a heaven inside hell, which is so poetic to me. Like, that's amazing. So, basically, the entire school is just being swarmed by these demon purple birds with, like, horns, and some of them even have, like, full-on, like, elbows, and it's crazy. So then we pick up with Old Man Logan. He's at a bar, and he's reminiscing about the horrible things that he was forced to do in the Old Man Logan series from a while back, written by Mark Miller, so it's super hyper-violent.
But that's one of those Mark Miller books that I absolutely love. Yeah,
no, absolutely, and it works for that, because, obviously Logan, a guy with claws, you can't really, make ice cream or whatever. You're going to have to kill people. So in this, though, Logan is, in at least what he thinks is, he's talking to Jean Grey in his head. I guess he's been doing this before. He misses her. He's had a strong connection with her all the time. In this case, though, it's revealed that it's actually Jean Grey, the teen Jean, who's come to talk to him. And it seems like the next issue is really just going to be about them connecting with each other. These are two characters who have a lot of history together, at the same time none. Because it's old man Logan, who definitely knew a Jean Grey, and this Jean Grey has really never met any Logan at this point, but we know in the future that this Jean Grey definitely had something with Logan. So it's going to be really cool to see what exactly their meeting's going to be like.
Well, I mean, every time Wolverine meets a teenage girl, he mentors them.
Yeah, it's true,
Every time.
Yeah. What do we got? Kitty? We got Jubilee? That's true. Oh, man.
Yep.
Oh, gosh. And Rogue from the
movies.
Oh, man.
Yeah, every time.
All right. Well, looks like we're getting another good spot for Logan. It's going to be awkward, I feel like, though, to mentor Teen Jean, who I know for a fact he has since been into.
Yeah, but he's an old man.
That's true.
He's lived through a lot.
That's true.
And his genie is dead.
Definitely.
And this one, I have a feeling he will try to make her life better.
Hopefully.
All right, so the last book I'm going to talk about tonight is one that I absolutely love. This was very close to being my pick, and I have a feeling when the next issue comes out it will be. We've got Invincible, number 125. We're in the middle of the reboot. So what happened a couple issues ago? So we're 125 issues in. Invincible, the series, for those of you who don't know, is about a teenager whose dad is basically Superman. And at 15, 16, he's, no powers, just working away at a fast food job. And one day he goes outside to take the trash out, and he tosses the bag, and instead of tossing it into the dumpster, he tosses it into space. And he's like, woohoo, my powers kicked in. So he goes home and he tells his dad, Dad, I got powers. So they go and get him a costume and find him a name. And they go superheroing together. And then he finds out my dad's an alien, and he's here to conquer the planet. And I have to stop him. And then my dad beats me almost to death.
Oh.
And then leaves the planet.
Oh, snap.
And that's like the first 6 issues of Invincible. Now here we are, 100 and some odd issues later. A lot has changed. So 2 issues ago, the main character, Mark, he is fighting something, and we can't tell if he was teleported, if his current mind, with the knowledge that he has, was sent back to his teenage body on the day he gets superpowers, or if it's all in his head.
Whoa.
So he wakes up and he's sitting on the toilet, and his mom is yelling through the door, and he's like, what the hell? So keep in mind, in the last 100 or so issues, Mark has he has a baby now. Like, he's much older than he was. The characters have all grown and changed.
I already love the title of this storyline, too.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
And it's Reboot? ?
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. So, last issue, Mark, he realizes what's going on. He gets his powers. He secretly becomes a superhero. Because the more he uses his powers, the stronger he gets. So, he gets his powers. He goes to where his dad took him to get a costume. Tells the dude, this is what I want. Gets the costume. Goes to the team that he eventually becomes a part of in his original story, and he's like, hey, here's the deal. And lays it all out for them, and they believe him, so he starts working with them. And they're saving people and doing stuff, and then they're at some sort of tragedy that Mark has basically been able to avert because he knows it's going to happen, and his dad shows up. And his dad's like, why didn't you tell me you had powers? And Mark's like, let's go talk. And that's the end of the last issue, and Mark basically tells him, I know you're an alien, I know you're here to conquer the world, but instead I want to talk to you about it and try to talk you out of it. And that's where this book picks up.
Oh my gosh, I need to catch up because that sounds fantastic.
So, Mark and his dad are like up in the air flying, talking to each other, and Mark's like laying it all out. Look, I know this is your plan, I know this is that you want to do. He's like, but this is what happens. You beat me almost to death and you leave. And then you're gone and you realize that you've made a huge mistake, that you love my mother, that you love me, and you have an intense guilt. And Mark keeps talking, and he's like, look, let's just keep talking and not fight, and his dad punches him in the face. And so they start having a fight. So Mark maneuvers it. In the original run of this, Omni-Man, who is Mark's father, quietly and quickly kills all of the superheroes that he perceives to be a threat to him. Mark knows this. So he maneuvers it so that his dad is beating him into their stronghold. So all of the people that Omni-Man is afraid they could defeat me are all in the same place.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
So this whole book is these people trying to stop this one insanely powerful guy. And there's a character in this book called the Immortal, and he's kind of a jerk. And he tells Omni-Man, I never liked you. And Omni-Man's like, yeah, me neither. And he punches him straight through like all the way through.
Oh,
all the way through.
yeah.
And you're like, oh my God, he's dead. And then later on, there's this bit where they knock Omni-Man to the floor right next to Mr. Immortal, and Mr. Immortal just says, dick.
Oh God, that's fantastic.
This book is amazing. It has been since day one.
Oh, I need to catch up. Oh.
It has been amazing all the way through. So I don't know what's coming next. I don't know if Mark is in some sort of dream space. I don't know if he actually went back in time and is reliving his life. And the woman who he had the child with, in this timeline, her boyfriend is still alive because Mark saved him.
Oh,
so now that Mark has saved the boyfriend of what is basically the love of his life, where does that go?
Wow, that
yeah.
It seems like it's a really cool spin on like traditional superhero. Like it's like reboot, but in the sense, like in a different sense.
Right.
It's just a really cool look at that. I feel like.
And this is one of those books where over the course of it, and you only have to read this one book. Like there are other books that kind of cross over into it, but you don't need to read them at all. Like at one point, Savage Dragon shows up in this book.
What?
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's an amazing book, and when things change, they stay changed. There's a storyline where Las Vegas gets flattened and turned into basically a giant sheet of glass.
Holy crap.
And it's just gone. Wow. Except now Mark has the opportunity to save it.
Wow. Yeah, that's really cool. I mean, already I feel like Invincible was kind of taking traditional superhero tropes and like changing them.
Absolutely.
And it seems like they've done it again with this new storyline. Like I said again, the title is really cool. Reboot ? That's fantastic.
And Robert Kirkman, who you know from Walking Dead,
of course.
This is honestly, I think this is his magnum opus. This is the book that 100 years from now people are going to point at and go, "That's the best this guy ever did."
So AMC, what we're saying is,
yeah, absolutely. I think this would have to be an animated series.
I'd be cool with it
because there are so many crazy like powers, and cyborg
gruesome
type things.
Too at times, which I don't think would fly on live action.
Yeah, sometimes it's like I said,
but everything's funnier when it's animated.
Omni-Man put his entire arm through Mr. Immortal.
Yeah, he did.
Or Immortal Man, or I can't remember. I think he's just called the Immortal.
They do. They have some of the coolest costume designs too. They're really like different than like your typical superhero stuff. Well, I guess not different, but they all seem very iconic, even though that maybe they aren't as iconic as like Superman.
I do want to say the way that they finally take him down is that there's a guy that can kind of phase through people, and when he does, it disrupts it looks like their digestive tract.
Yeah,
he threw up a whole lot, and then they knocked him out.
Oh, I like that the immortal guy, while he's saying "dig," it looks like his like organs are configuring or something.
Yeah, he's there's somebody who's like, "How fair are you, Fred?" And he's like, "I'm working on it. I'll have a new heart in no time." Yeah, like that does really bother him. He's immortal. It's whatever. But I love Invincible. I highly recommend anyone out there who likes good storytelling. Doesn't matter what kind, just good storytelling. Pick that book up.
Awesome. So the last book I'm going to talk about this week is Sam Wilson, Captain America, #3. There's moments in comics where it's just beautiful, amazing, creativity coming to fruition. And it happened a while ago when Captain America became a werewolf.
The 90s was a weird time, man.
So thank God for Nick Spencer, who is like Capwolf, one of the most seminal stories of Captain America. He brings it back. What's even funnier, though, is that the characters in the book are aware that it's like a terrible thing. Like, Misty Knight even mentions, like, the first thing she says, she sees Sam Wilson strapped to this table. He's literally a wolf, and he's like, I don't even want to hear it. And she says, no, I got it. It's just, you hope and pray, but you never really think it's going to happen. Cap Wolf is back. So that's basically how it opens up, and we get a flashback to, you know, how he got to this point. He basically is going to search for this woman's grandson who had been kidnapped by the serpent guys, and they're all being tested on by this guy named Dr. Malice, which sounds like an evil name anyway. Basically, he turned this dude into an iguana, and it's like this fleshy pink iguana that's crying. And it's just, yeah, it looks so sad. So yeah, he's just busy turning dudes into animals, and apparently he had a run-in with Carnage. I'm not familiar with this character, Dr. Malice, so I'm not really, this is the first I've ever seen him. He had a run-in with Carnage at some point, and he was eaten by him, and slowly digested, I guess. That somehow made him like a symbiote hybrid, I guess? He's like a human and a symbiote. So Captain America's fighting this Carnage-looking doctor with a bowl cut, and Sam Wilson mentions that, see, this is why I should team up with Spider-Man more. How do you deal with these goop things? I punch it and they just punch right through. So yeah, he's you know, fighting this goop guy, this symbiote dude, and he's trying to, you know, distract him, take him off his game, and the reverse actually happens. Dr. Malice actually gets a hold of Red Wing, which kind of takes Sam off of his guard, and he ends up getting knocked out, and Malice captures him. Malice decides to turn him into a werewolf, and
as one do.
Yeah, he actually mentions it too. He says, I'm such a fan of the classics. After all, it was the Bloodstone that transformed your predecessor last time. And he's like, this time we're going to use the wonders of science. So, yeah, basically he's a werewolf now. And not only is he a werewolf, but he's still Sam Wilson Falcon, or Captain America, so he's wings too. So what we have is a flying werewolf Captain America going through the city. Meanwhile, Misty Knight is not letting him live this down. She's making references to the Big Beavers game, a reference to Teen Wolf. Then mentions how, after all this is over, you deserve a vacation somewhere abroad in Europe, like an American, and he cuts her off. Werewolf in London? How many do you have of these? So, yeah, Misty's having a great time with the fact that he's a werewolf. Sam actually, he goes to Dr. Malice's new headquarters where he busts through the window, and Dr. Malice says, really, the window again? They have my credit card on file. So Dr. Malice then sends these mutated creatures, you know, to fight Cap. And Cap is familiar with the symbiotes. He knows that that they have a weakness to sonics. Luckily, Red Wing was just equipped with a new sonic cannon, and so he tells him to, you know, to fire, basically, which that completely knocks out Dr. Malice or whatever his name is. And then we get introduced to the man they were looking for, Joaquin Torres, who has been basically like mutated with Red Wing. Like him and Red Wing are basically combined. Obviously, Red Wing's still around. They just use his DNA, I suppose. So they've been hinting, or I guess in some of the future issues, I've seen the all-new Falcon. So I'm going to take a wild guess and say that Joaquin Torres is probably the new Falcon that's going to be coming up soon. And he's legitimately part Falcon. Like, he's got wings, he's got bird-like feet. So yeah, I'm going to bet that that's the new Falcon coming up, which is going to be great, you know. We then get Sam back to talking to this dude's grandmother, or abuela, in this case, and he's talking about how, you know, I saved him. He's changed. It's nothing life-threatening, but he is different. Meanwhile, he's still a wolf, by the way.
Yeah, I'm looking at werewolf with a T-shirt on.
Yeah, he's a werewolf with a T-shirt, and they say that his condition is temporary. They seem to think mine's temporary. They don't know how long it's going to last. So I'm hoping that while it is going to be temporary, I wouldn't mind seeing a few more pages or a few more comics with Sam Wilson Catwolf. At the end, though, we see Sam talking to the Whisperer, who's been this guy since the beginning of the series, who's been giving him intel. We don't really know who it is, but basically we find out the guys who are behind this whole, you know, mutating humans with animals is the cosmetics industry. Sam Wilson's like, Hydra? No. AIM? No. The cosmetics industry. That's who it is. And we find out they basically just want to use that like, if you want snake eyes, we'll give you snake eyes. If you want,
maybe she's born with it.
yeah, exactly. In this case, no, because it was genetic manipulation. But yeah, so these guys are running this racket. Obviously, they're not the only ones. There is kind of a guy who's hanging out with them, who's kind of keeping the tights off their case. And it's actually a few guys. It's Serpent Solutions, which obviously we all know the Serpent Society. It seems like they're trying to get into a business, and
they were like, "Hey, it's working for Ant-Man."
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, now we have Serpent Solutions, and it seems like they are going to be the big threat going forward. And I can't wait to see, hopefully, Werewolf Cap punch these guys out.
Cap Wolf.
Yeah. So thank you, Nick Spencer, is what I'm saying.
Nick Spencer only writes weird stuff.
Yeah, it's true. His Ant-Man this week was just as good and just as weird. So
I think they should, instead of calling that dude Falcon, they should call him the Word.
The Word?
Yeah.
Okay.
Bird is the Word.
Oh man.
And with that, there's not really a lot going on this week.
Not a lot, and we did burn through a lot with our fake podcast that'll never be heard.
Yeah, we recorded for about 40 minutes and then realized, none of it recorded.
Yeah.
So then we did it again. So hopefully this was...
but somewhere in another dimension, that podcast was amazing. So.
Yeah, it was the best one that we've ever done. They're, like...
We actually had the entire cast of Hawaii Five-0 on it, but no...
the original cast.
The original, yeah, not the new one. Who cares?
Yeah, not at all. So like, we talk a lot about TV shows and movies and such, but there's not really a ton going on this week. Like, everything's moving at a good clip. Other than Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. last week with the somewhat too short wrap up.
Quick handling of Lash,
yeah,
which I'm sure will...
That means he'll be back.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, he'll be back, and that's not done.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we record this on Tuesday, so there's new episodes tonight. I'm sure those will be great.
Yeah. The one thing that did happen yesterday, and I watched it this morning on Gotham. The actress's name, do you remember?
Michelle Gomez.
Michelle Gomez, who was the mistress on Doctor Who, has shown up on Gotham, basically playing the mistress. She's just like, she runs all of the assassins in Gotham. Gotham is what it looks like, and she's like, if I take a job, it gets done.
Yeah.
Well, she took a job and she tried real hard.
Her name is the Lady, if I'm not mistaken, right?
The Lady.
Yeah, which kind of fits that character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was pretty good. The last week's episode, I had Gordon took down the big bad guy, and then his sister this week was a little miffed, so she took out a hit on Gordon, and a lot of people died. But Gordon was not one of them.
Thank God.
Yeah,
I'm still working my way through season 1 of Gotham, but I've seen some casting from season 2 that's got me excited. One, Hugo Strange is going to be in it, which I think is really cool. And the guy that cast him, B.D. Wong,
he's amazing.
Yeah, it's such a great idea. I would never even thought of it. Such a great idea, though.
So what I think is going on with Gotham, I've said this before, and I don't remember if I've said it on the podcast or not, but I think the people running the show are like, we're on Fox. We're going to get canceled any minute.
Yeah.
Let's do every crazy thing that runs through our head until we get canceled.
Yeah.
Because that's how it feels. Like, I thought we were looking at a season-long story arc that seemingly wrapped up last week. And I know it's not done. There's more coming. This episode had crazy monks in it.
I need to catch up.
Yeah, crazy monks that just knife cops.
Oh, I definitely need to catch up. Oh
yeah,
my God.
it was weird, but it's Gotham.
Yeah.
Yeah, forget it, Jake. It's Chinatown. So, unfortunately for us, or fortunately, if you're tired of hearing us talk, I think that's about it for us this week.
Yeah. I mean, I guess we should mention, me and Tommy both were actually on the Checkpoint Ahead podcast, which is actually out now on iTunes. I don't know what the name of the episode is, but I know it's a super fun time. We actually had Dash from Community Service podcast, and he was on that too, so that was a really good time. And of course, Nick, our producer and host of the Checkpoint Ahead podcast, was on there too. So if you like hearing us talk here, I'm sure you'll like hearing us talk with 2 other people about pretty much the same stuff and more.
And just so that I can put this out there to make Nick feel better, I am much quieter than everyone else on the podcast, but it's not the audio quality. I could barely talk on Sunday. I had a sore throat and could hardly talk, but I was there.
Yes, he was there, and he was loving every minute of it. Yeah, so I guess that's pretty much it for us. Once again, I'm Travis from Checkpoint Ahead, and you can follow me at Twitter, or on Twitter, at Spark-Man. Hyphen is spelled out, and yeah.
And I'm Tommy from Richmond Comix. You can follow me all over social media at Tommy Mad Prophet. That's it for us this week. We'll see you on Wednesday.